traditional way of doing business was that, these large organizations would come to the Philippines, set up their own kind of a customer service, business, and then, they would hire people, they would manage those people, and that's the traditional way of doing
It's the
things.
traditional
Yeah,
way. It's
and
the old
now
school
the
way.
old school way, right?
Yeah.
And but with post COVID and even before COVID, the world was moving towards a more tech first approach where and finding solutions to not doing that, because as far as I understand, setting up your own company in the Philippines is difficult. Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
I gotta admit, it's very difficult. It involves a lot of admin work,
Hmm.
bureaucracies there.
Yeah.
Trying to start a business in the Philippines, and the best solution, out of pocket solution, is really employer of record.
While the world's still asleep, we're already grinding. Walking foreign streets, big city lights so blinding. Learning and hustling in this relentless game. The Emerge Pod's next up, we're breaking the frame.
Hi, and welcome to the Emerge podcast, where we break down emerging markets and give you actionable insights on how to start and grow your business in them. Today, we're in the beautiful city of Kuala Lumpur, and joining us in this studio are the representatives of RecruitGo, Gary, who's the COO, and Jillian, the head of sales. Hi, guys. Thank you so much
Hello,
for being here.
Sohaib.
Hello.
Nice to see you here.
It's always a pleasure. How are you liking KL so far?
Well,
Great.
fantastic.
Yeah.
Fantastic. This is our second day and we're loving it.
So, were you able to manage around the rain this morning?
I like it. It's colder as compared to yesterday. So, yeah, just like
It's just constant, fluctuations in the temperature in KL all the time.
Yeah.
But thank you so much for joining us today. Let's start off with you, Gary. So, the Philippines is most well known for its outsourcing, right?
That's right.
And its people. And so that's the industry that you guys operate in. So, why don't you give us a bit of a history on your work with outsourcing in the Philippines?
For sure. So, outsourcing started in the Philippines around the mid 90s, right?
Okay.
It wasn't really that well known until, it took off a little bit 5 years. Okay. And then by the early 2000, it was just booming. It was a competition between the Philippines and India
Absolutely.
as one of the two top countries for outsourcing, right? So I would say 95% of my corporate DNA belongs to the outsourcing industry, the call center. I started as a call center agent and then worked my way up until, all of a sudden, fast forward to 2010 is the birth of employer of record service.
Right.
It's another form of an outsourcing business model, but I would say this EOR thing is way, way cooler in so many business levels, right? So, yeah. In a
So-
nutshell, that's how I evolve from the outsourcing industry.
Right. So, generally, what kind of employees are people looking to hire when they come to the Philippines? What's the Philippines known for?
Well, number one would be English fluency. There's a high level of English fluency and also the commitment and passion to work
Okay.
and the flexibility because Filipinos, we are known for just working, whether it's graveyard shift, nighttime, it doesn't really matter. Our commitment to work and excel in the given job is just right on the top level.
Absolutely. And I found that in my interactions with people from the Philippines, they always have such a positive attitude when it comes to pretty much anything. And this kind of, when I noticed that was when you guys had some natural disasters a couple of years ago with
Yes.
floodings and stuff, right?
Yeah.
And people would still find a way around that to make sure that their lives went on. So is that the kind of resilience that draws employers to the Philippines?
I would say it's really the grit.
Yeah.
It's a cultural thing that we are known for, right? It's really overcoming those struggles, overcoming those challenges, and really just it's not even a matter of survival. It's just really a matter of pushing for excellence, I would say.
That's perfect. Perfect. Makes it a breeding ground for really good resources for hire. So, moving on, this whole global trend of hiring remotely pretty much, came into the spotlight during COVID, right?
That's true.
So
That's true.
how? But you're saying that the Philippines was already known for outsourcing.
Right.
But how did COVID change things? Did it like propel the Philippines into a new era of outsourcing, perhaps?
That's a very good question, Sahib. As much as tragic the pandemic is, there's still some positive things that came out of it, right? So when there was a total lockdown, and I believe this is not just a Philippine thing. This is more of a global thing, right? It paved the way for remote working.
True.
All of a sudden, offices shut down. Business went down. So we had to find a way. I mean, the entire industry, wherever you are, has to find a way on how you can sustain and maintain the business, right? The operations. So one of its solutions, the discovery during that time is the remote work. Like as long as you have Wi-Fi connection, as
Yeah.
long as you have your computer, laptop, probably your fix of caffeine, your
Yeah.
favorite coffee on the side,
Absolutely.
right? You can still deliver. So that is something that, if there was pandemic, if it's a disastrous thing, but if there's something positive about it that came out, it's really the remote work.
Absolutely. Did you find during that time where there was a shift between people setting up their own outsourcing centers to then moving towards, remote hiring, and we'll transition this into the employer of record services as well.
Well, there are two things actually, right? Some of the established centers, what they done is they made a business model to allow their employees to work from home.
Okay.
That's where they provide the hardware, the computers, the headsets, and all that stuff. Allow the people to take those home, and have them, work from wherever they are. The other thing is this: the other business model would be going into the employer of record, in which you don't have to run all those households, right? You don't have to go all that trouble because some company would really provide you the entire services, and all you have to do from the back end, from a perspective of managing remotely, is just monitor your people, and the rest is being done now by the companies who run EOR.
Okay, so let's take a step back to the traditional way of doing business was that, these large organizations would come to the Philippines, set up their own kind of a customer service, business, and then, they would hire people, they would manage those people, and that's the traditional way of doing
It's the
things.
traditional way.
Yeah,
It's
and
the
now
old school way.
the old school way, right?
Yeah.
And but with post COVID and even before COVID, the world was moving towards a more tech first approach and finding solutions to not doing that, because as far as I understand, setting up your own company in the Philippines is difficult. Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
I gotta admit, it's very difficult. It involves a lot of admin work, bureaucracies there.
Yeah.
So Jillian is very familiar with all the headaches, trying to start a business in the Philippines, and the best solution, out of pocket solution, is really employer of record.
So what does employer of record actually mean?
Good question. So employer of record is really it's a business model, right, designed for companies who would like to expand their business into global scale.
Okay.
Okay, it means, in a nutshell, it means that you want to start in operations, but you don't want to, or not just you don't want to, but you want to save yourself, right? You want to save your company for further spending, establishing your local entity. Then you go to EOR, right? Jillian can speak more about how you remotely scale up and how EOR actually works.
Sure. Jane, go ahead.
Sure. So EOR is basically, to add with what Gary has explained, it's leaning against registering a company, as you've mentioned, which is the traditional way. And since there's a lot of compliances involved, a lot of regulations that you need to know, but your only thing is just to employ talents, right? Basically, talents, employees that can help you with your main business outside that market. So basically, EOR is just hiring great talents in another market that you're not in it, and then making it compliant, easy, and very, I would say, friendly to everybody. So we do manage both HR and payroll. Basically, you just manage the daily operations. So it makes you focus on your company better.
Right. So what I'm understanding is that EOR allows you to hire people in countries where you do not have a legal entity to
Correct.
hire those people. But then the first question with that is, how does that differ from hiring freelancers? Because you can pretty much hire freelancers online on many platforms. So how is EOR better or worse than hiring freelancers?
It makes it way better, and I would say cooler, because you get to hire them as employees.
Okay.
So there's a very huge difference between an employee and being a freelancer. For example, all the government mandated contributions that personally a human person, a working person needs, for, let's say, pension, health insurance for that country, or maybe other contributions that the government requires. There is a reason why the government requires it, and it's all for the benefit of an employee, of the workforce of the country, right? So I think that's the main advantage. You get to hire these employees with compliances, and you get to also give other benefits that you cannot give, or you cannot share if they're just hired as freelancers. Basically, it also, to extend it more, retention is there. You get to retain your employees more as well because of these benefits, these compliances, and again, security. I think it's also job security for your employees.
Yeah, so I think there are two aspects to it. There's the aspect of the employee's safety, and then there's the aspect of the employer's safety. Because when
correct.
you're, I've been on both sides of those spectrums, and working remotely as a freelancer, you always run the risk of, what happens if this company
Correct.
runs away one day and they don't pay my salary, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So this
Same.
binds them.
Yeah, from a practical standpoint, right?
Yeah.
Let's try to put ourselves into these companies wanting to, let's say, enter a market, right?
Yeah.
So if I'm starting a company, let's say I don't know anybody from the Philippines,
Yeah.
right? And I don't want to risk putting my own business there because I just really want to test the water first,
Yeah.
right? So what would I do, right? If I hire freelancers, right? Let's say, for example, 5 web developers I met in maybe LinkedIn and Facebook, hire them, sign the contract, between me and them, and what's going to keep my peace of mind that these guys is not working for another company,
Yeah.
or that these guys will not show up by next week? What's going to give me that sanity,
Because the
that
contract
security?
the contract that you sign with them won't be enforceable anywhere because
Exactly.
you're not a legal entity in the Philippines, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Correct.
And even if they do breach the contract, like, I wouldn't have
There's nothing you can do, yeah.
the resources to run after them, right?
Yeah.
Legally, right? So, and that's really the advantage also of having an EOR company partnering with them, because they take all the risk. Compliance wise,
Absolutely,
they do that for you. Administrative wise, they do that for you. Managing their payroll, everything is being done for you, right? So if in case, let's say for example, out of the 5, 4 went AWOL, okay, let's just put it in an extreme case. The EOR company will be the one to replace them for you.
Right.
So
right,
you
right.
still get to continue your business, right? Without really having the headache of, what am I going to do? Who's going to work for me?
Absolutely.
Who will be hiring the next batch and all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
The EOR company, which is Recruit Go, I must say, will do that for you.
Perfect. But Jillian, since you're handling mostly the clients and the sales part of it, do clients consider this a short-term solution, or are there people who consider this as a long-term thing that they just don't want the hassle and they just continue with the EOR for a long term?
It's actually both.
Okay.
So it can be a short-term solution, but it can also be a long-term solution. Short-term, I would say, if you really need to set up an entity, if the client really plans on having a presence in that market for the reason that they really need to trade with other local companies, then it's a short-term solution. Maybe test the waters first, hire a bit before marrying that country, right? So, however, it's also a long-term solution because, as mentioned, they only need the administrative back office work. So why do you need to be in that country, have a presence, if you don't really need the presence in the country as a legal entity? But the good thing here is, even if they just plan on it being a short-term solution, it ends up being the long-term solution as well. So they also get that once they try it out,
They get
they
used
just-
to it. They get hooked, right?
yes,
Yeah.
exactly. So it's a very, very good solution.
I can imagine because we've worked with a lot of freelancers in the past, and the biggest fear that we've always had is, what happens if this guy or this person just stops responding to you one day, and you rely on your freelancers or employees to do the work, but if they go AWOL, I wouldn't be in that country to chase them down or do anything. But then you have companies like RecruitGo who can actually make sure that the employee remains engaged. But let's move out of the Philippines. Do you guys operate in other markets as well, or primarily the Philippines?
Yes, so
Absolutely.
we
Yeah.
do have we have a lot of markets. We're actually expanding quite well.
Okay.
This past year, we do have presence in Indonesia, in Vietnam, in Dubai, Pakistan, Thailand, Malaysia, Singapore. So yeah, definitely we're anywhere that you want to hire. That's basically what EOR is. Expand globally, right?
But I saw that you didn't mention India in that. Is there a reason for not expanding to India? Is it a
We-
very
we-
competitive market?
We are looking at India. Actually, we have already spoken to different partners that we can collaborate with. So, just wait a little bit longer. So we'll get there.
Yeah, wonderful.
Yeah.
Fantastic. But you're already pretty much covering the Southeast Asian bloc and
Yes.
some part of the Middle East as well.
Yes.
Working across different markets, like I'm sure there's a huge cultural difference between Vietnam, Philippines, and Indonesia, and even Malaysia. Do you find that workers from a certain country are better at one thing than the other? So, what would be like the key picking points from each of these countries? What are they good at? Like Pakistan, I can tell for sure we're good at development, right?
Yes.
That's true.
So, what are the other markets good at?
All right, so I'll start with Philippines since that was our topic. So Philippines, as mentioned, it's been a back office country for the longest time, more than 20, 30 years. So, there's really accountants everywhere. Anything related to back office, executive assistant, sales, marketing. Right now, IT is also booming,
Okay.
booming industry in the Philippines. But specifically for, let's say, for Indonesia, insolvency brokers or insolvency practitioners
Interesting.
are
Okay.
booming there, which we couldn't, which Philippines is lacking, right? In Vietnam, it's game development.
Oh,
App
interesting.
development is
Wow.
in Vietnam. So definitely these countries, although there's similarities, of course, the basic accountants, finance, marketing, sales, you can definitely get that everywhere. But there are positions that the clients are also, they also know basically where they will hire because these are experts in these specific markets.
Okay. So as an international, company, I would have two considerations when hiring abroad. The first would be, of course, skill, and the second would be cost. So, what are some of the differences in cost when it comes to hiring from these markets? Are they very cheap as compared to the rest of the world?
I wouldn't say cheap, but I would say cost efficient.
Yeah.
Right? Because-
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah. Different markets has its own I would say cost efficiency level. It would depend on several variables like the number of years of experience of an employee, what kind of certification. Let's say, for example, if you're looking for an IT level, what kind of certification do they have? So it's a tough question because there's just so much variables that are.
Well, again,
have to
it's the general
factor in.
perception, right? If I was a company in the US, if I hire someone in the US, it's gonna be more costly. So this is primarily why the Philippines became a hub in the first place, right? Because it was cheaper. But over time, what I've personally felt is that as the world goes global, the rates also rise.
Correct.
So that is actually one of the negatives of global hiring, that generally people now know what they are globally worth. So average salaries are kind of going up globally. Does that make sense with the work that you guys are doing? Are you seeing that salaries are rising?
Yes. Let's go with IT, for example. When we started a couple of years ago, IT in the Philippines is very cheap,
Yeah.
right? But right now, if we pitch IT people or IT positions, you are correct. It's double, triple the price of
Yeah, because the
Three-
people have
3
now
years ago.
realized that what they are globally worth.
correct.
Right.
Yeah.
However, again, these professionals are actually very skilled.
Yeah.
And even if it doubled or tripled, it's nowhere near the Western pricing.
Yeah.
So it's still very competitive, very cost efficient still.
Mhm.
And yeah, it's definitely the quality of work that they also give.
Now, I think what Gary said about cost efficiency, it's the best bang for buck you can get.
Yes.
And I think it's while yes, there won't be as significant difference in price, but you still your recruitment pool gets a lot bigger if you're looking at all of these countries combined. There are millions of people who are very skilled at what they do in all of these countries. Jin, back to you on the client side. So when someone comes to you, are they usually in a exploratory phase, or do they know that they want to hire from a specific country?
They usually know
Okay.
what country they want to hire in.
Mm-hmm.
But again, we're not just selling the service, we're actually being consultants.
Okay.
So if ever there is a requirement by the client and they say, I want to hire in this country, we can help assist them. But as consultants, we also have to tell them, do you also want to hire in this country? Because based on our
Advantages, yeah.
experience, this is where we can get more qualified candidates, right? Or qualified workforce. And that gives them an idea like, all right, you're the expert. Maybe we can. Because it's all remote work anyway.
Absolutely.
Really doesn't matter where they hire, right? So your credit gives companies and these owners opportunity to actually get the best workforce, the best professional that they can in anywhere in the world already.
Makes sense.
Again, it
Yeah.
goes back to the flexibility of
Yeah.
the EOR, right? So, I mean, if you don't have any clue that you can hire really great IT in Indonesia, let's say for example, IT people in Indonesia, and if we tell you that we've had a great success of run hiring people there, if I'm the the company who's trying to look for an EOR service, it's not so much risky for me to do so and explore. Why? Because again, the EOR company will take care of everything.
Absolutely.
So plus the fact that we can always go to the options of different employment models, right? There are 6 months project based, there are project based, there are long term. So I've got this array of options that I can work on depending on how much risk I can take,
Absolutely.
how much investment I want to put in. So it's really a whole it's like a buffet of flexibility of options for your business.
Yeah.
If you know what I mean.
Absolutely. But that leads me to think from a customer's perspective, like from a client's perspective, what are some of the fears that I would have when I'm going to an EOR service? Now, a freelancer, if I was to hire a freelancer, that does come with a certain level of risk, but it allows me to get out of the freelance contract a lot easier. Is it very difficult to get out of EOR contracts in these countries? Because that's another problem that a lot of Western countries have, that when you hire someone full time, then you have to, of course, you're paying their benefits, it's a very secure position. But then getting out of that arrangement becomes very difficult in certain countries where you have to give severance, or you have to, give them a long notice period. So it's one of the first fears that I could think of is, will I be stuck with a bad employee if I go for an EOR?
Definitely not.
How?
Yes, we have to follow whatever the regulations of that country is. And I think that goes from the beginning, because the reason why you want an EOR is to be compliant, right? For not just for yourself, but also for the employees. So you already know that you have to follow whatever that country's laws and regulations are. But here comes an EOR partner, right? That is your payroll and HR partner. So when we say partner, we are there to assist and work for you and even educate you on how that market works. So if ever, definitely you're not going to be stuck. There are ways. There is a way to terminate an employee or offboard an employee, but we have to think of, you have to terminate them in the correct way.
Of course.
And here comes RecruitGo, your partner, who will definitely help assist you. Of course, there's, let's say, performance evaluations. Treat us as your HR. So if you're mad at your employee, then give us the reason why. We'll do the documentations for you, just so we have a recording, right? It's all recorded, legally
And I
recorded.
like what you said about, the HR partner or EOR partner being able to replace an employee as well. So you would offer recruitment in place of someone, even if one person that I've hired might not be working out, the EOR
Yes.
partner can find you more people, right?
Right. And part of our partnership, like what Jillian mentioned, is that we look on the trends. We look on the performance of an employee. So if there are any red flags, we will be proactively telling you that, hey, this fellow is has been out sick for quite some time now. So we will need to have that tough discussion with the employee first on what's happening, and then we will report back to the client so that we can plan out on, is this something that it's really concerning that we can prepare for a replacement. So all of those intangibles are also being done on the back scene as part of your safety net.
Absolutely. Okay. So, all right. So, from a client's perspective, so I am pretty safe when it comes to whether I hire a bad person, I'll be taken care of by any of our partner. Another fear that a client would have potentially is something that you mentioned in the beginning. Whenever hiring freelancers, it's always a question whether the person would be focused on your needs and not have like 10 other side gigs. So, how does an employer of record arrangement help fix that?
Well, first of all, we have an extensive background checking. That's for one. We need to have a character checking. Basically, lots of confidential matters will be disclosed in order for us to really know the person. And then secondly, there is a strict employee contract that we will be implementing. So that is something that is bounded between your commitment as an employee and to us as your employer. So those are the things that are really secured in order for us to make sure that this person is not, moonlighting, right?
Yeah.
And aside from that, I think you would know, like one would know, based on the results that the employee is, I would say, inputting, right? So, so it's really a secured and safe space. But in the event that there will be cases wherein all of a sudden this person is also working for another company, then that's where the strict and comprehensive policy takes into place, right? We take that very seriously. That's going to be an automatic offboarding, right? With proper due diligence of investigation, of course. And then right away, there's already a plan B, a replacement for that employee, so that once again, you can continue your business
Perfect. That
without really having a long setback.
makes sense. Another factor that I've had a couple of clients who I've encountered who said that hardware is a big problem when it comes to hiring freelancers. So, for a company to provide hardware to their freelanced employees, it comes with a huge amount of risk, right? Plus, I've had clients who've tried to send hardware from the US to Asia, and that always gets bad because I try to explain that you can buy that hardware locally, but they say, no, we have our own hardware. We will send it to the employee because there's no one in the middle, so they have to take care of it. Is that hardware situation for employees something that EOR partners help with?
Definitely.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, so you're correct. Importing laptops, customs
It's a nightmare, right? Customs will destroy
will
you.
definitely hold it.
Yeah.
So it's a nightmare, not just for clients, but they're
That's
also
true.
asking help from us. And
Yeah.
customs are very strict in all
Yeah.
countries.
You still get clients who say that, even though you guys can purchase the hardware, they will still send their own.
Yes, they
Yeah,
try.
I've seen that,
They
yeah.
try. We've had a couple,
Yeah.
and they ended up just buying again from the let's say the
local-
Philippines, the
yeah.
local market,
Mhm.
right? Because so definitely answering your question, we do provide laptop acquisition service. So we'll source the required laptops, whatever specifications that you need, whatever brand, or an alternative that is the same with the same requirements as you have, and then we'll purchase it and we'll deliver it to your employees as well. Not just that, we also try to extend the service whenever your employees are now offboarding, maybe terminations or resignations. We also try to help assist with retrievals of laptops, even with the IT of deleting, making it a new laptop again, restoring the original
Setup.
Yeah, definitely.
So already I can see you've replaced two departments. One is HR and the other is IT
Yes.
for someone who's looking to set up in one of these markets. So that's pretty cool.
Once again, I'm going to sound like a broken record, but again, EOR has so many flexibility,
Yeah.
right? So we have partner with 20 plus suppliers in Metro Manila and some in provincial location. So when a client wants to purchase a laptop, that has very specific, I would say, requirement, we give them a list of our suppliers, and not really the suppliers, but the list of the hardwares that we can purchase for them, right? So
course.
you just need to choose. And the problem that it really solves is this. So imagine you have 5 employees. You're going to send them 5 laptops, right? And they're from different locations.
Yeah.
You're from the US. Would you like to send those from one in Davao, one in Manila, one in Cebu? No, right? So
Yeah.
it also takes care of the problem of the shipping timeline, right? Because let's say, for example, if you have onboarded your employees March 1, so you need to have those laptop there by the first day of March, right?
Yeah.
You can't rely on shipping because it may take 2 to 3 weeks, which will delay your operations, right? So Recruit Go, the EOR model takes care of that problems.
That's pretty cool. And even at the end of someone's contract, like if we have to let an employee go, then Recruit Go will come in and handle the offboarding and get the laptops back and make sure the company property is secured, right? So that we don't
Yes.
end up losing a laptop, which might, put us at a
Even
loss.
delivering it to your new employee.
Right, right,
So
right.
it's really, it might be a very simple task if you're going to think about it, but it's actually
For an international
very
client,
hard.
it can be very
Yes,
hard.
it
Yeah,
can be
yeah.
very difficult for this very simple task. And here's a partner that can actually help you with it.
And then you would have those local contracts as well that enforce that an employee has to let go of the hardware at the end of their
Definitely.
contract, right?
Yeah.
And that contract is actually enforceable because you guys are local, right? And
Yes.
then the contract is between a local company, yours, and the local employee, so that
Correct.
secures. Okay.
Yes, summarize everything, right? From the client standpoint, we take all the risk.
Yeah.
The accountability of the assets is within us.
Hmm.
So that really takes care of a lot of what's going to happen with the hardware I purchase and all that stuff. No, you don't have to worry.
Yeah.
We're accountable.
I will actually take that one step further. What happens if a client backs out? Because now you're in a situation where you hold all the risk. You're paying the salaries for the local employees. You hold the local contracts. You've got the hardware, everything. Now, one day, all of a sudden, let's look at the flip side, that an employer disappears or says that, okay, I'm not going to pay for this service anymore. Where does that leave you, and how does that protect you and the employee who was working with the international client?
Yeah, so we have a extensive service agreement that is basically covered and secured by all our legal department. So that takes care of the risk. I'm just happy to say that we've been doing this for maybe a good stretch of 7 years now, and we haven't had any incident yet.
Wonderful.
So that's really wonderful. I mean, it really ends also in our ability to know if this client is really for good or not. So that is also covered by the service agreement that we apply into, because our compliance and legal department, it's not just from the Philippines, but it's really global.
Right, right. So I'm now thinking about all of this instead of from a client's perspective, but from an employee's perspective. Now, I think that the positions and jobs that are available at employer of records might actually be better for employees as opposed to, even local hirings or even working as freelancers. So do you get a great deal of, people looking for jobs come to you guys so that you have your own big pool of people?
Well, there's a lot.
Yes.
There's tons. Our recruitment team has a robust process on how to get candidates. And this 2025, there's an initiative to partner with different universities. So
Right.
fresh grads can also partner and collaborate with us with this university. So that's something that we're looking at around the second quarter. And then aside from that, we have an active social media wherein candidates can also explore and message us, send their CVs to us. So there's just a lot of, I would say, recruitment funneling that's happening.
I'll give the example of Pakistan because that's where I'm from and I understand the dynamics there. Internationally, working internationally has really done a lot for a lot of people in Pakistan that pretty much, lifted them out of poverty and smaller cities and Uh, so it does the services that you guys are pretty much providing. It does a lot for the economy
Yes.
of the country as well.
Mhm.
I'm sure it's slightly different in the Philippines because the Philippines was already at a stage where internationally working was very common. But for markets like Pakistan, it's something that allows the local talent to then start exploring global opportunities. So, have you found that in your experience that when someone works with international companies, it's better for them?
Yes, definitely. I think previously, although there's an experience, it's more on the call center type.
Yeah,
So they do work with other countries, but still they're working for a local call center BPO,
got it.
right? So it's again, it's a very different thing with EOR, wherein you are directly communicating and directly working with the foreign employers, right? So, uh, yes, it's a very great opportunity for the workforce, let's say in the Philippines, because number one, they're working for international employers, which actually is very generous, I would say, because of the difference in the salary structure and
That's true. Yeah.
yeah, basically the structure. So instead of paying, let's say, $10,000 for a person in the US, they're going to pay $2,000 for the Philippines, and they're going to give extra benefits,
Of course.
right?
Yeah.
Private insurances, maybe bonuses, but because it's still lower, the cost will
Yeah.
still end up as a lower cost. Then
That's a good
the
way to look at it.
employees
Yeah.
are going to be very happy, right?
Mhm.
That's the goal. If you have a company, you want your employees to be happy because when your employees are happy, they get to do their work better, right? Which ends up with better retention as well. So these employees are actually they look forward to working with international companies right now.
So, to bottom line this, EOR services like yourself brings happiness to the people, the employees, and to the employers as well, with peace of
Yes.
mind and hiring good talent from across the world at lower prices with higher bang for buck, and it helps employees also explore international markets and get better. And is that something we'll probably move this towards a closing, but how has the talent in the Philippines evolved over time? As you mentioned that it was a very call center focused thing, but now we're moving on to more industries because of the international demand. So, do you find that the quality of employee that you can get in the Philippines today is better than what you could get 10 years ago?
Definitely.
Definitely
Yeah,
yes.
and you're working with universities as well, right? Yeah.
Yeah, but based on my experience, Sohaib, so I'll give you a quick bite of the reality. So back in the days, call center, sadly, because of the booming of call centers, there's just a whole lot of, I would say, work hopping or job hopping from one company to another, right? It talks about, a very high attrition rate back then. And the problem with that is, from an employee standpoint, the learning ability is limited because you tend to jump from one place to another, hindering you from getting the higher level of opportunity to learn more, right? With employer of record, what I've noticed is that attrition rate is probably less than 6%.
Interesting. Okay.
Very interesting because employees are, I would say, they're happier. They have a better setup. They're working from home, working remotely, right? They're not being micromanaged, and they get to do their passion, right? And that brings up a whole lot of commitment and learning ability to really increase the quality of your work. So when you're asking me if the skills have leveled up, then I would say 100% yes.
It's not just the skills; it's the
Yeah.
whole attitude towards work, because now you can work in your own comfort zone,
Yes.
and
Exactly.
when employees have that, they excel more.
Right.
And Jillian, I especially like what you said that hiring in the Philippines is there's a big cost difference, which then allows employers to add bonuses on top and still be cost effective, and that probably does a lot for the employees, right? So
Yes.
I really especially admire that point about EOR and how it can allow companies to have more engaged and happier employees, because you're paying lesser, but it's still considered as a very rewarding position for people in all of these markets.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If that's for a business entity or a company that doesn't need to have a local entity without any investment on infrastructure whatsoever.
I
So you
want
get
I
to
want
have that quality,
I
right?
want to add as well though. It might be scary
Yeah.
what we're mentioning, not micromanaging your employees,
Hmm.
no office setup. It might be scary for somebody outside the country
Hmm.
because again, you don't know that country, right? That
That's true.
market.
Yeah.
However, I want to assure maybe the viewers or clients or anybody that's looking for this type of setup, um, majority, I would say all of our clients are actually very happy with their employees.
Hmm.
And to add there, they're even giving, as mentioned, commissions and bonuses. They were very proud of how the quality of work that these employees are
Yeah.
actually
Yeah.
providing.
Cool.
And again, it's from a short-term alternative to a long-term
long-term.
solution. So it really says a lot about EOR
Yeah, I think
service.
this is the way forward because, I can imagine the fear an employer might have that they are unable to micromanage, but you realize that there's already a negative connotation attached to that because
Yes.
now micromanaging isn't really the way to go globally. And while there are definitely companies who prefer that kind of environment, I don't think a lot of companies moving forward would want that negativity attached to their brand. And plus, with technology, it's so much easier to monitor, measure work
Yes.
that even if you have a remote employee and you give them the right hardware, you can pretty much keep track of what they're doing, and also with the results that they're delivering. And the general perception now with having employees is more results driven anyway.
Correct.
Yeah.
The amount of, I would say, effort
Mhm.
for somebody to manage all the options are there given the limitless in technology that we
Mhm.
have, right? So you can monitor on an hourly, daily basis. Yes, you can do that. But what we're trying to tell everyone here is that with the EOR business model, you don't really have to,
Yeah.
right? That's an option. But if you want, if you're the type of person that you'll be able to sleep 8 hours a day because you're really checking on each of your employee,
Yeah.
then you can do
You
so.
can, yeah.
Productivity can be
Yeah.
measured again hourly, daily, weekly basis, right? But once again, if you really want to work smart and not work hard, I mean, EOR is the way.
I like that. Okay, well, we're gonna wind the conversation down, and in the end, I always give a couple of minutes for my guests to pitch their business. So imagine that you have a potential client in the audience today, and you have a minute or two to pitch Recruit Go and what Recruit Go offers. Go.
Maybe summarize everything that we
Yeah.
mentioned. So we are definitely your partner if you want to expand in the Philippines or in Indonesia, Vietnam, and all of these other markets globally. So definitely instead of thinking about setting up your own entity, maybe you have to also try to test out the market. Maybe it's scary to expand, but now is the time to expand, right? So test the market out, hire your talents, start with a couple or maybe 5 team, and then grow from there. And then let us handle your payroll and HR. And then you handle the operations, focus on your business, right? So, but I just want to maybe summarize in maybe 1 to 2 sentences everything that we talked about. We're not just selling EOR. We sell. We're kind of like the bridge between clients and employees or talents, and I think that's the whole idea of our service.
Wonderful. Gary, any closing thoughts?
Global expansion sounds so difficult and complicated,
It
but
does.
I want to tell everyone here who's watching, global expansion is a slam dunk. It's
Yeah.
actually a layup. To be perfectly transparent with you, don't take my word for it. Give us a call, email us, reach out to us, and we will tell you all about it.
Fantastic. Well, we'll leave your information in the description of this video as well. But thank you so much for being on the Emerge podcast. And, we try here to always have conversations, difficult conversations about the realities of how things work. But from what I'm hearing, EOR is definitely the future of hiring remotely. And we thank you for being here. And I hope that you enjoy the rest of your stay in KL.
Thank you.
We will, for sure. Thanks, Wahib.
Thank you.